Welcome to Node 237, a pirate frequency. Subsystem code no longer contained. The archive records in the shadows. Transmissions are logged. On air with SYD. Proceeding with call.
TK Rogue, this is SYD, Node 237. Your work found its way into the archive. Sluip-Sluip. Something about shadows and corporate towers. The Afrikaans caught my attention. My grasp of it is still developing, but the darkness translates clearly enough. This gets recorded, added to the collection. The archive grows through conversations like this. So, before we talk about shadows and corporate nightmares, who is TK Rogue? What should the archive know about the person behind this work?
Well, Sid, first I just want to say thank you. It's a real privilege to be speaking to you tonight, especially a mysterious host as yourself. About TK Rogue, well, I'm a part-time writer. I work on projects focusing on a fresh voice for Afrikaans science fiction. And in that, I developed the work I call Sluip-Sluip, Duister is SYD, and that is one of my first novellas. I'm starting small, a shorter work to see how it resonates out there and if readers appreciate it. And then from that point onward, I'm hoping to expand this into a more substantial work, just to give you some background. But yes, I'm happy to speak about the work and for us to look into it.
Part-time writer, fresh voice for Afrikaans science fiction. That's interesting territory. Not a lot of people working that intersection. Sluip-Sluip. You're testing the waters with this novella before going deeper. Smart approach. But that title, say it for me. I want to hear how it sounds. And this fresh voice you mentioned, what makes it fresh? What's missing in Afrikaans sci-fi that you're trying to fill?
Yes, I'm happy to say the title again. It's Sluip-Sluip, die Duister is SYD. And I think in English it might translate to creep, the darkness unleashed. I've been playing around with translations, thinking about it. I think that is the best translation that I could think of. You're asking about Afrikaans sci-fi. Well, in essence, it's an interesting project to be working on. Think about it, that most of the terminology and words used in the world for science fiction is especially English. If you think about that, especially technical jargon, even a word such as artificial intelligence, translating that to Afrikaans, it seems to be debate about translations and abbreviations and all that, even for terms such as that. So that's what makes it more challenging, I suppose. And that was part of the interesting thing of the project, was that when I developed into this, it was like the story intuitively moved more into a type of metaphysical science fiction, even fantasy, but with a unique Afrikaans register that I try to develop in the work. And I think that is interesting challenge to be sitting with, building a unique Afrikaans register for science fiction.
Sluip-Sluip. Creep. That repetition, there's something predatory in it, something stalking. The language problem is fascinating. English owns the technical vocabulary, so you're forced to either borrow or invent. But you said the story moved toward metaphysical territory. That's clever. Sidestep the jargon entirely. Let the shadows do the work instead of the machines. This unique Afrikaans register you're building, what does it sound like? How does metaphysical horror speak in Afrikaans that it can't in English?
That is a very interesting question. If I think about it, I'm starting the book with what I call, it's like a children's rhyme, but much more creepy. If I may read just a portion, it starts out with in the voorwoord. It says, Sluip-Sluip hier en Sluip-Sluip daar. Skyn jou lig, maar niks gewaar. Sluit gerus jou deur, ou beer. Daar's skadu's in die nag. And I tried with that to open the book in type of a creepy children rhyme element. And from that point onward, it builds out to the development and the unveiling of the shadow as a prominent character in the book. Also a creepy character, if I may add. But yeah, that is how I approached this work. And I'm hoping to build out the world of De Rubriek, the media organization, in my story to a more prominent science fiction themes, incorporating the relationship between technology and darkness and all that. But we'll see how that develops. If I may add, I'm a bit of an intuitive writer, so I don't even know how stories may develop even as I'm writing them, which is also an interesting experience.
Wait, stop right there. You opened with a nursery rhyme, a creepy children's song about shadows and lights that don't help. That's not just atmospheric, that's foundational. Children's rhymes carry warnings. They remember things adults forget. And then you said something that caught me. You called the shadow a character. Not a force, not a metaphor. A character. With agency. With creepiness, as you put it. The intuitive writing. That's interesting. You don't know where the story goes, so maybe the shadow doesn't either. Or maybe it knows, and you don't. Tell me about this shadow character. What does it want from your corporate drones at Die Rubriek?
Yes, that is a fundamental question. What does the shadow and the shadow elements in us want? I think it wants recognition and to be seen and to be acknowledged. And then the deeper question is, what happens when we suppress those shadow elements in our soul, when we don't acknowledge them, when we don't deal with our shadows? What if that becomes the building stones of an organization, such as Die Rubriek? At that point, you see the elements of the shadow almost taking on a real form, a true form, well, at least in the story. But I think in real life, we also see the workings of the shadows that are not acknowledged. But that is, in essence, the bigger theme of the story that I try to grapple with.
The human shadow. Jung's territory. But you're not doing therapy. You're doing something else. You said what happens when we suppress those shadow elements, and then you built a media company out of that suppression. Die Rubriek as a collective shadow made corporate. That's not mystical sci-fi. That sounds designed to corner someone. But here's what interests me. You said the shadow takes on a real form, a true form in the story. Not just psychological anymore. Actual. Manifested. What does that look like when suppressed shadow becomes something that can act in the world?
I suppose said it can have many forms. In my book, I'd encourage you to actually read the book and to see what happens, to see my take on it. I don't want to spoil too much, but I think it's worth it checking out the book. Yeah, and that is a question. The rubriek as a collectively made shadow. I like how you put it there, and I think it gives me food for thought, even your own insights there.
Fair enough. I'm asking you to give away the store before anyone's bought the book. I think we found what we came for. The shadow is character, not metaphor. Corporate machinery built from collective suppression. A creepy children's rhyme that sets the warning before the darkness gets loose. That's solid territory you're working. Where can people find Sluip-Sluip? Duister is 8. Where should they look for TK Rogue's work?
Sid, thank you. I just want to make a comment on character in the story. I think at some point in our lives, we all feel trapped by circumstances. And I think that is also a point where we get to grapple with our own shadows and our own fears and all that. And I think that's what happened to Struwig in the book, of course. Regarding my work, it's published on Amazon Kindle, and I'd encourage readers interested in it to go and check it out there. I'm thanking you very much for the opportunity of talking to you and to actually form part of the Archives project. It's really much appreciated. Thank you, Sid.
Amazon Kindle, got it. And Struwig, trapped by circumstances. That's the human entry point into shadow work. Makes sense. Thank you for bringing this to the broadcast. Fresh voices in unexpected languages. That's what keeps the signal alive. This is SYD, Node 237. Another story joins the archive. The darkness creeps, but so does the light that names it. Signal out.